And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Taking a look at the marine forecast, starting with the ice edge. Talking to the ice forecaster again today. He's seeing some warm waters coming out of the Mackenzie River, and with the current coming across the Arctic coast, that's slowly eroding that ice pack from the east. We also have some clearing ice out there in the Chukchi Sea. For Wednesday's marine forecast for southeast Alaska, looking at winds generally from a variable direction in the inside waters, anywhere from 5 to 10, with seas as high as 2 feet. Again, pretty nice conditions down there in the Panhandle, both flying weather and marine-wise. Otherwise, outside waters, winds generally from a variable direction as well, anywhere between 5 and 10, seas as high as 5 feet. Then for Thursday, inside waters, winds generally light and variable, 5 to 10, seas as high as 2 feet. And then for the outside waters, winds generally from a northerly direction up to 10, with seas as high as 5 feet. Then for Wednesday's south central forecast, winds generally light and variable up to 10, seas as high as 3 feet there along the coast. And then out in the Cook Inlet region, looking at winds generally light and variable, 10 to 15, with seas as high as 3 feet. And then for Thursday, for the Gulf region, winds generally from a variable direction up to 10, with seas as high as 3 feet. And for the Cook Inlet region, looking at winds generally from a southerly direction, 10 to 15, with seas as high as 3 feet. Then for Wednesday's marine forecast for the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island, winds around Kodiak Island 10 to 20, with seas as high as 5 feet. Southside Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a northwesterly direction 15 to 20, with seas as high as 3 feet. And then on the north side Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a northwesterly direction 10 to 15, with seas as high as 3 feet. And then for Thursday, winds around Kodiak Island drop off a little bit. Winds generally from a variable direction 10 to 15, with seas as high as 3 feet. And then for the south side Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a variable direction 10 to 15, with seas as high as 3 feet as well. And then on the north side of the Alaska Peninsula, winds generally from a southwesterly direction 15 to 20, with seas as high as 4 feet. Out there in the Aleutians for Wednesday, looking at winds generally from a southerly direction 10 to 30 out there in the western Aleutians. So look for small craft or gales out there on Wednesday. Seas as high as 10 feet out there in the western Aleutians. Otherwise 3 to 5 feet there in the central and eastern Aleutians. Then for Thursday's marine forecast, looking at winds generally from a southerly direction again, and then anywhere between 15 and 25, with seas as high as 9 feet there, just south of Kiska and Kodiak. Again, look for possible small craft advisories there on Thursday. Then for the west coast Wednesday, winds generally from a westerly direction 10 to 15, with up to 20 to 25 around the Pribilofs, and then seas as high as 3 feet, 6 feet up there just north of St. Paul. And then for Thursday, winds generally from a southerly direction 20 to 25, with seas as high as 9 feet. So look for small craft advisory there around the Pribilofs on Thursday. Then for the Arctic coast, winds along the Beaufort Sea coast, winds generally from a variable direction 5 to 10, down through the Chukchi Sea, winds generally from a southerly direction 5 to 10, maybe even 20 down there in the Bering Strait, with seas as high as 3 to 4 feet. And then for Thursday, along the Beaufort Sea coast, winds generally from a westerly direction up to 10, with seas as high as 2 feet as you get into the open waters there, just north of Kaktovik. And then down through the Chukchi Sea, winds generally from a southerly direction 10 to 20, with seas as high as 4 feet. Down through the Bering Strait, winds from a southerly direction 20 to 25, with seas as high as 5 feet. And again, looking at the surface map for Wednesday, that low coming into the Bering Sea, 1,007 millibars there with a occluded front triple point, otherwise ridge of high pressure coming into view over there on the western coast and poking into south central region. Some generally dry and nice weather that way, otherwise some lingering lingering thunder showers over in the eastern interior. And then some pretty good weather again over there in the Panhandle with that ridge in the Gulf of Alaska. And then for Thursday, that low in the Bering charges up into eastern Russia with just a trough now, ridge getting hammered down to 1034 millibars, with ridge now south of the eastern Aleutians, but otherwise another ridge out there in the Gulf of Alaska.